Well, hello again from the Granite State. And as always, thank you for joining me. This is the Restoring Main Street podcast. Shut off the intro there so that we can get a little quiet going here. Hope all of you have had a good week since the last podcast. Trying to get into a regular rhythm again, posting things for you to hopefully enjoy and share, and at some point, comment. This week's topic, I stumbled onto it today, and it was just basically from listening to other podcasts and, just realizing how much is going on out there. The title of the program for this week is Things That Make You Go, And, as I was listening today and trying to, put thoughts together and basically make sense of any of it, I realize there's just way too many things right now that are happening that make you go, it just triggers something inside, and you stop and that doesn't make any sense. Or why, how come, rather than drag this out, I'm just going to get started with the program this week, and let's get into this discussion. And there we are. Like I said, you normally go through life if you're the average person, and incidents, things that happen, whether it's local, personal, even on a national level, there are things always that you stop and you pause and you go, why? What is that about? Well, before I dive into a lot of that, I want to share just a quick story with you. It's a habit that I come home from my day job, and I'll sit down and have a conversation with my wife. I would bet that this happens in households all across America, if not, around the world, to one degree or another. It's just life. So sat down today and I was, discussing with my wife, or she was sharing with me, just some of her day and what went on with, with her work or her job. And, they have something that the supervisor and the employees of this particular, company share. It's I guess you could call it a one-on-one. You could call it a quick little training meeting, a touching base, or that type of thing. And the supervisor tries to do this with each of the employees on a regular basis. And I'm not talking lengthy. Big gaps in this stuff. It's monthly. And my wife was just talking about, discussing sharing her meeting with her boss today. And when they sit down for these things, it can be about, work issues, if there's something going on with work, but it doesn't have to be. It can morph into a more personal discussion of things. It's whatever makes sense. It's a life balance, as I hear people talk about, between work and life. So those conversations, like I said, can go either way. And what am I leading to here? Well, they got into a discussion about anything but work. And it boiled down to, honestly, somehow they got on the topic of, when they were growing up, when they were kids, what were some of the common things or things that they used to do. And, they talked about their lives, just briefly, discussing, not necessarily growing up rich, growing up, poor, or maybe not as well off as some of your friends at school, but then they talked about all the things that they did as kids, getting into actual games and stuff that they did outside. They weren't, you know, home dwellers or didn't stay in their rooms, when they had the option to get outside. They had plenty of friends in the neighborhood, and they did those old-fashioned games. If you talk to most kids, they probably wouldn't even recognize these, talking about, playing red light or tag or that type of an outdoor game, or even, just your pickup sports games, whether it be basketball or baseball or something of that nature. But, as the two of them, my wife and her immediate leader, were just running through things, there was a certain commonality that just came to the surface as I was sitting there listening to my wife, just kind of share this with me and give me a part of her day. And it was just some of the common basic things that always made sense, that grounded, people, that I wonder if they still ground people today, but it's those basic things that, when those things get disrupted, when we're talking about getting back to, life today or how things maybe have changed, that really can send up a red flag or cause you to pause and say, what is this? Why is this? And I guess that's kind of what I wanted to share with you with that story is that the common ground that we all share, or at least in this conversation, what they discussed, the things that made sense to them that they used to share, just talking about their lives and growing up. So what am I leading to? Well, there was a couple of stories that just kind of hit me strange this week, and I'm trying to understand the common sense behind them. And I guess I'm being a little bit facetious when I say that. It's not really the common sense that I'm concentrating on, because it's not common sense. And it causes you to pause and go, what is this, or why is this? So let me share with you the first article or piece I'm going to use to illustrate this. And as you can see, I grabbed this off of Breitbart. You can find this at other news sites, whichever one, you care to, look it up, but just search this up. And this is something from our friend Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. And like I said, this is what caught me off guard, or just kind of made me pause and scratch my head. Gas prices must go even higher to save democracy. Okay, that, like I said, that doesn't even make any sense. So let me try to share some of this with you and see how you feel about any of this. The World Economic Forum released a position paper Monday that exorbitantly linked two claimed global crises as one, climate change, and the decline of democracy. It says fighting the former can save the latter as long as consumers stop burning coal, oil, and gas in exchange for green renewables. Okay. The World Economic Forum, or the WEF paper, argues for the past 15 years, democracy has been in decline worldwide. To protect and promote freedom, leading democracies must strengthen their economies and safeguard liberty. Okay, I'm still not. It's still, light is not dawning on Marblehead. How these two things relate. It goes on to say, ignoring progress toward a lower carbon economy could put democracies in greater economic peril, not less, while repeating the broader demand of environmental activists for companies to stop investing in fossil fuels. So, now we see a little bit of what they're getting at. And you'll see, as I slide up the page here, you'll see another Twitter post from Breitbart, and it talks about activists pressuring banks to stop investing in fossil fuels, just to combat climate change as they see it. Doesn't that sound familiar from some of my previous podcasts when we talk about, just a couple of podcasts ago, I was talking about President Biden, during his lead up to his election, talking about, stopping fossil fuels, putting an end to fossil fuels, moving us away from fossil fuels. And I'm trying to understand how that affects preserving democracy. And just as a point of note, we're not a democracy in the United States. We're a constitutional republic. A democracy is mob rule. It's 50% plus one. And there's a reason why our founding fathers didn't want to go that route. But I digress. Let me read down here just a little bit further. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has brought renewed focus on this economic weakness, the WEF says. Economic weakness. Well, from what I can remember, when gas was more affordable, and everybody could afford to fill up their gas tanks without feeling like they had to mortgage their first child. I remember democracy actually being, or our republic being, a little bit more secure because nobody had to give a second thought of whether they could make it to work for a week, or if the supplies to the local grocery store or the things you needed at Walmart were going to be on the shelf or not, because diesel wasn't through the roof. So I'm not getting it as far as how this affects democracy or democracies around the world, or what Klaus is even saying, other than the fact that the World Economic Forum and a bunch of countries and companies that have bought into all of this are trying to end fossil fuels. Does it make you think that there's an adverse, more of a devious reason behind this than helping democracies or the economy? Let me read just a little bit more of this. First, leading democracies should agree to end the underpricing of fossil fuels, which is the principal factor preventing a clean energy transition. The underpricing associated with producing and burning coal, oil, and gas amounts to $5.9 trillion in economic costs, in 2020. Nearly a quarter of these losses, $1.4 trillion, occurred in 48 major and smaller democracies. Like I said, I'm still at a loss. I need to go back up to the top of the page here and just read that headline one more time. Gas prices must go even higher to save democracies. I'm sorry, but Klaus, I don't see where the crisis is. I don't see what it is that you're talking about as it relates to countries being able to function. If here's the thing, and I mentioned this a couple of podcasts ago. If renewable energies were the solution, if electric cars were the solution, if anything, but nuclear energy, which we have demonized in this country, which makes zero sense if you're talking about the ecology, the environment, and impact, because it has very little impact on those things. What he's saying doesn't make sense. Things that make you go, unless, of course, the goal is to cripple countries, to slow their progress. Of course, China, India, Russia, and all these other countries are not going to slow anything. It seems like, the only ones that are really, the only country really targeted, is the United States, or anybody that, any country that kind of, has maybe a little bit of freedom or liberty as part of how they live their lives. Maybe that's more of what it's about. If, like I said, if these renewable energies were actually the solution, and they were affordable, and they weren't beyond painful for people, people would transition and move toward this without even a second thought. So I'm sorry, I don't see how increasing the price of gas or fossil fuels is going to make any of our lives easier, or how it affects democracies. Actually, it throws a huge monkey wrench into the free market and how countries can function freely. So, yeah, sorry, Klaus, I don't get that one. So that's my first moment that I wanted to share with you. And let me share this to kind of illustrate this even further. This is something I found on Facebook. A friend of mine posted this, and it's related to a local restaurant, and it was just talking about the increase in prices. You can see this, right? It says, talking about fryer oil was $12 12 months ago. Now it's $35. It was $35 6 months ago. Today it's $50 for that same amount of frying oil if you're a restaurant owner and you're trying to keep your business afloat. Chicken wings, your buffalo wings that we all enjoy, $45 a case 12 months ago. Now it's $175 a case today. Takeout boxes that, we take for granted. It's just a styrofoam thing or a piece of, folded up, fairly sturdy cardboard or something of that nature. $25 for a supply, 12 months ago. Now it's $95 today. And like it states here, this is the same for all of our cleaning, paper, and food we use. If your local restaurant adds a few dollars to your meal, it's not to get rich, it's to continue staying in business. And all of that, as a majority, you can tie to the cost of fuel. So getting rid of fossil fuels isn't making anything better. And we don't have a ready solution that we can transition to that isn't beyond crazy if you think it's going to make our lives easier. This is just what these elites have in mind, that they want us to just bend the knee and do. That's what it pretty much boils down to. And I'll make my second point in a second. I'll be right back. And actually, I wanted you to look at my ugly mug one more time before I transition to that next page. All right. My second thing that makes you go, and like I said, there's plenty of them. I'm just trying to keep this down to a manageable length so that all of you will take a few minutes and check it out. But the next thing, let me transition back to that page that I faded into earlier. This is something I pulled from the New York Post. And you may have heard about this on, just a program that you've been listening to. I mean, it came up because, honestly, it caught most people off guard. This is a PSA. New York City releases PSA for residents in the event of a nuclear attack. Say what? Let me just play this for you.
So there's been a nuclear attack. Don't ask me how or why, just know that the big one has hit, okay? So what do? There are 3 important steps that I want you to remember. Step 1, get inside fast. You, your friends, your family, get inside. And no, staying in the car is not an option. You need to get into a building and move away from the windows. Step 2, stay inside. Shut all doors and windows. Have a basement? Head there. If you don't have one, get as far into the middle of the building as possible. If you were outside after the blast, get clean immediately. Remove and bag all outer clothing to keep radioactive dust or ash away from your body. Step 3, stay tuned. Follow media for more information. Don't forget to sign up for Notify NYC for official alerts and updates. And don't go outside until officials say it's safe. All right, you've got this.
So, does any of that sound familiar from the last 2 years? Sounds like COVID, but we're talking about a nuclear explosion, a missile. That's kind of what it suggests if New York City has been hit, the big one, as she put it in the PSA there. So it tells you, at the beginning of this, it says, don't ask why or how, just know that the big one is hit. Well, just being the normal person that I am, and I'm sure all of you are, the next question out of my mouth is why or how. So what you're asking me to do is to deny my common sense yet again. Things that make you go, what do they know that we don't know? Do they know something? Well, if we're watching the news right now, you see what's happening with Russia, what's going on, as far as our relationship there with China, what's happening with Iran. We're hearing reports about them being, that much closer to having uranium enriched to the point, and most people believe they already do, that they could actually place these into a ballistic missile and use them. And every word out of our leaders' mouths right now tend to be poking the bear, and that's pretty much literally when it comes to Russia. And you're talking about Ukraine and Russia suggesting that if any U.S. missiles or tech blows up something in Russia, they're going to consider that a grievous offense, and we will pay a very high price. This is straight out of Putin's mouth. So is this more grooming or conditioning of the public? You know, as far as, I mean, they basically used the fear porn when it came to COVID, you know, even though you know, as things progressed through the early stages of that, and we got to understand more and more about it, that, you know, a lot of the draconian things that they did were unnecessary, but they still were peddling fear, and a portion of society bought into that fear. Well, here we are again. You know, either what do they know that we don't know? Are our leaders really being that careless that we could just, you know, we're just one incident away into sliding into World War III? Things that, like I said, that make you go, And if you're not asking some of those questions, then you're not thinking. Why would you accept something like that? I mean, this type of PSA is something we used to see in the 70s and 80s when the Cold War was still going on. What's up, New York City? What do you know that we don't know? And that's, you know what, that's all I'm trying to bring up tonight. This wasn't going to be and isn't going to be a very long podcast. All I wanted to do, and this is not an attempt to, I'm not trying to peddle fear here. What I'm trying to get you to do is, remember that conversation or the story that I talked about at the beginning of this podcast when my wife and her, supervisor were just talking about days gone by and things that were common to them that made sense, that, certain parts of their childhood that everybody remembers and can rely on, and it just seems, okay, that things that ground you, that, like I said, that just, for lack of a better term, that just made sense to people, None of this, every time we turn around, none of this makes sense. I'm sorry, Klaus. I'm not buying that somehow getting rid of fossil fuels or getting out from under them is going to save anybody's democracy. Right now, it's killing every single country that's affected by this right now. Russia just shut off Nord Stream 1. Or was it who? It doesn't matter. They shut it off to Germany and the other countries that they supply because, for the next 10 days, they're going to be doing maintenance on those things. So, it seems to me that the reliance on fossil fuels is because it still made a lot of sense. And the fact that we're not living up to our potential here in the United States because of this administration's declaration of putting an end to fossil fuels. If you were a fossil fuel company and the president was saying, by 2030, we want to be out of fossil fuels, how comfortable would you be if that was your industry? What direction are you going to go? This is your livelihood, but it is also something that made sense to millions of people around the world because it allowed freedom to a certain degree, mobility, ease of travel, and all of it, every bit of it, between the moving of commerce, all of that makes sense. There's some common ground there that we all understand. So, when you're trying to somehow say that, holding on to that, something that's affordable, that makes sense is going to destroy democracies around the world. Sorry, that's a bunch of garbage. And my second illustration was just to show you, where we're at right now. The 1970s and 80s, was the last time you heard something like this, or a constant talk of potential nuclear war? We're going backwards in a bad way. And none of it makes sense. So what can I say, beyond this? I guess my next words are that basically, do you still remember how things were just a few short years ago? What made sense? Do you remember your life, being, what the word normal? Do you remember that normal back 2 or 3 years ago? What that normal felt like? I know in a lot of ways we're not going back to that normal, but something I remember stating 2 or 3 podcasts, maybe 4 podcasts ago, talking about our freedoms and what we need to do as individuals, especially in this country, while we still have the ability to do so. The statement was made, and I stole this from somebody else. It's not mine. Your rights and survival only extend as far as you're willing to stand up and fight for them at this point in our country. There's nobody coming to, per se, save us. And I'm not trying to create fear. I'm trying to create the will to do something about it, to stand up. We got to get out of our comfort zones. We need to learn to be a little bit more uncomfortable. And I know I'm probably going to butcher this, but one of the guys that I listen to on a regular basis, Steve Dace, made the statement the other day, we need to get out in the public sphere and as a society stand up against this and make yourselves, the populace, unmanageable when it comes to some of these draconian things that they're asking you to do. You have to be willing to feel and act and do. And I'm not talking about anything radical, okay? I'm not talking about any kind of a physical anything as far as physical harm to anybody else. What I'm talking about is, schools this September. If your schools are talking about masking up your kids again, how about 20 or 30 of you dads or moms? I'd like to see the dads actually, stand up and do this. Take their kids to school. Take a little bit of time off of work if you have to, and walk into school with your kids unmasked and just, take them to their first class, or, physically walk in the building and just show the administration that you are not going to comply with these ridiculous demands. Things like that. The lie that's being perpetuated about fossil fuels. The World Economic Forum and the Build Back Better ideas, all of that, they want to get rid of fossil fuels because, like I said, that spells freedom for all of you. If we would ramp back up again in this country, if you'd get a 180, like I said a couple of podcasts ago, if the president came out and said, okay, we're no longer attacking fossil fuels. We understand we still need these for a period of time because there's nothing to transition to that makes any sense, that's affordable, that's reliable. You would see an immediate drop in the price of gas. And then as we ramped up, that would solidify, because speculation is a huge part of the price of gas. And we all know this. They can tell you anything you want, but, anything other than that is an outright lie. So these are the things that I'm talking about. And what else like I said, there's nobody coming to save us, and we can't wait for an election all the time. We are the answer. You and me. And local. That's where it's got to start. You got to shore up, your cities. You got to shore up your state legislatures. And stand up for the things that make sense. That's why I told you that story about my wife as far as common sense and the things that, you could relate to. Do you remember common sense? Do you remember the things that we all used to be able to agree upon? Even if you were on different sides of the aisle politically as you grew up, there were certain things, core things, that we all believed in. And those were outlined in our, Constitution and Declaration of Independence as far as our mission statement and then our planned, our framework for enacting what it is that we were trying to develop and the country we were trying to make. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that's what I'm saying. None of us can sit on the sidelines anymore. Otherwise, it's going to be a constant barrage of going, things that make you go, And then, are you going to be a lemming? Are you going to be one of those that just falls in line and just goes along to get along? I have to say that part of the reason we're in the state or condition we're in the United States right now is because a lot of us fell asleep at the wheel, didn't demand better from our politicians. It has to come from us. And no matter what happens at a federal level, the only way that you're going to be able to secure a little bit of sanity is to, like I said, work at things at a local level. So at the very least, we can build pockets of places that things still make sense. Principles still hold true. The values that we all used to share, even if we had different opinions on how to get to some of those things, we still shared all the same values. So I guess that's what I'm talking about. That's what I wanted to share tonight, was basically, like I said, the idea that we need to get out of our comfort zones, and how many more of those moments are the things that make you go, you're going to sit back and just accept. I hope there's a lot less. Don't wait. Don't wait. Okay. Let me do little, house cleaning or the normal things that I go through, because there are people that support me out there, and I really appreciate this. Gene Valley, my friend on Facebook, Coffee News Rochester. If you're a local resident, please go on Coffee News Rochester. Anything that's happening in Rochester that makes sense, that or even surrounding communities, because some of that gets in there as well. If you want a place to go to that will pull all of those things together in one spot so you can have an idea of what's going on around you, that is a place to go. I thank my friend Gene. He supports this podcast. I appreciate that so very, very much. And as far as I know, he's on the mend. He's getting better. So keep the prayers going. If you were praying for Gene before with the health issues and COVID and pneumonia, that type of thing, he's getting better. So please keep the prayers coming, and I truly appreciate that. Also, my friends over at metalheadsrock.com, like I said, they have got anything that you would be interested in as far as clothing, mugs, T-shirts, any of that stuff. Excuse me, as far as heavy metal and the rock genre, you can find those things that you can sport and fly your colors, so to speak. So please, metalheadsrock.com online, or if you live in the local area, you can take a run down to the Rochester Mall, and they have a store in the mall. And everything that they offer is right there, whether it be online or in the store. And if there's something you're looking for, ask them. Maybe they can get it for you if you don't see it in the store or online. Tell them, Gary from Restoring Main Street sent you. And as always, you can find this podcast on YouTube. You can find us on Rumble. You can find us on Gab TV. I post links to Getter and Truth Social and Instagram, Twitter. If it's social media, chances Parler, I post things to Parler as well. So I have links and pages on all the MeWe. You can find my Restoring Main Street page on MeWe. You can find it on Gab, but if you go to Gab TV, and you will find my podcast there. And honestly, I am going to continue to ask all of you to, shake the shackles of social media that tends to censor. Get away from your YouTubes. Even though I post the links there, I really would like to see people and people subscribe and follow to my podcast on Rumble or Gab TV or BitChute is one of the other video platforms that I post to. Still haven't worked out the audio portion of things, but as soon as I do, I'll get back to posting on Spotify and some of the other audio versions as well. But right now, it's video, and I pray that you would go there. Please, like I said, share, like, follow, subscribe, write a review. All of those things help tickle the algorithms and help spread the word and get just the voice of this program out there further. And that's all I'm trying to do is share information with you, something that I feel is relevant. And I pray that you see the value in all of that and that you appreciate the efforts that go on here. Also, as far as New Hampshire goes, I would like to encourage people, if you don't have the Telegram app, if you haven't downloaded that, think about downloading that to your phone. And then for New Hampshire, look for rebuildnewhampshire.com. That keeps you informed of what's going on at the State House as far as laws and, where they're at, whether they're sitting in the House in committee, whether they're going to be voted on or what. It just, when I talk about local, shoring up your towns, your cities, and your state capitals, these are the things that I'm talking about, and the only way you can do that is to be informed. So be informed, get involved, get out of your comfort zone. We have become way too comfortable in that respect as citizens in this country. It seems like only the radicals are comfortable getting out there and they're doing crazy things. I'm not asking you to do anything crazy. All I'm asking you to do is to don't be compliant with things that you know are not relevant, that are not based in fact and truth. We need to stand up. We need to become ungovernable as it comes to those things. And I'm talking about peacefully. But get yourself noticed. That's what I'm talking about. And as always, I want to leave you with something to think about, and that always consists of think about God, freedom, and family. Because if we lose the first two, our families are doomed. So until next time, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Again, please share us with a friend and follow, subscribe. And until next time, God bless.